Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. On today's show, I have René de Vries, who is the candidate for Markham-Stouffville for the People's Party of Canada. We're going to talk about their platform. We're going to talk about who he is and all that sort of thing. But before we go, hey, all you listeners out there, you want to start a podcast? I know you all do. You got to go to getagripstudios.com. That's right, getagripstudios.com. Fully virtual before virtual was a thing, but also in studio. That's right. You can come in here and record your podcast right very close to Markham. We're not quite in Markham. We're in North York right now, but we're about 30-second walk from Markham. So go to getagripstudios.com. What's up, René?
Well, thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah.
Mike, a great time. We're in the middle of a campaign. We have 3 weeks to flatten the tyranny.
There you go.
So,
attorney. So just for all the listeners out there, I've interviewed other politicians, listeners. You guys know this, but this one I'm the agent for René in Markham-Stouffville. It's where I live, and so we're just going to disclose that from the top. Flatten the tyranny. Before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about René de Vries.
About René de Vries. Okay, I already told you when I walked in here. My last name is the Jones of the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an immigrant from the Netherlands. I arrived in Canada in 1988. I was born, raised, and educated in the Netherlands, an environmental science and engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
I came here with big hopes and dreams, and I lived my dreams professionally and also family-wise. And so in that sense, Canada's been good to me. It's fully become my home, even though I have still a lot of roots in the Netherlands. My parents live there, and I often still visit there. So that's my mixture. I'm a Dutch Canadian, proud on both sides.
Tell me about your professional career.
I'm a professional geoscientist in Ontario. I have worked for 30 years in environmental consulting, mostly related initially to soil and groundwater contamination, and over time that expanded to other areas. At the moment, I'm working as a senior vice president for a large international consulting company, Dutch, 27,000 people. I'm part of the management team here in Canada. We are involved with large infrastructure projects. We do. We're, for example, now thinking about Massey Tunnel in BC. We're working on the Don River renaturalization for waterfront Toronto. We work on light rail transit projects throughout the country, not just in Mississauga. That one is now almost done design. We're into construction. We're also working on the big passenger rail projects across the country. So we're applying our Dutch knowledge as a company in Canada as it relates to transit. I think on transit there's some improvements to make in Canada, passenger transit in the cities, and we're doing it. And I'm glad to be part of that and provide the contributions.
So you came out hot and talking about COVID and all that, but I want to go a little bit more into your environmental credentials.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the other candidates are talking about environmentalism. I think sometimes they use it as a political weapon.
It is. I believe the whole climate change, in fact, debate. I'm getting very upset about that often. If I think about it, it's all politics. It's not facts or truth or science. And we see that there's an agenda there. In fact, it might somewhat be related to this ism that's taking over the country related to COVID. It's a globalism, and it's
so
it's
globalism as an ideology.
Yes.
So people talk about these ideologies, Marxism. This is like Germany in the 30s, or this is like Russia in 1917.
Yes.
And it's communism, it's fascism. This is something different.
Yes, it
doesn't have a nation state border and keeping it in its place.
I don't know if you saw that. This is quite chilling, actually. One of the Auschwitz survivors of Vries, in her first name, she was at the anti-lockdown demonstrations in Toronto earlier this year, and she said, the unfortunate thing is the same people are back again at it, but then now on a global scale behind the scene. And whoever's behind it, if we want to talk about details, George Soros or Bill Gates, people are directing this, or the Rockefellers, and agendas are being being fed to us, and the politicians are all just going along, to get along.
Well, I think what a lot of people, like, a lot of times you see people on Twitter, like Roman Baber, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yeah. Well, he's great. Yeah.
But also I think he's naive. So when he's tweeting, he's like, "This doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense." And that what I want him to know is that those are features of the agenda. The nonsense making policies, the incrementalness and the nonsense making policies of it are features of what they're trying to do. They're nudging people down the road. As more and more people get vaccinated and are willing to be vaccinated and are willing to hide their vaccine injuries, which is what's happening. They're hiding their and then they all of a sudden said, "Well, I took this risk. I was sick for 4 days with the vaccine." Or not. You have to do the same. There's an incremental nature to this, which is a feature of what they're doing.
Correct.
It is not.
It's planned.
It's not. It's not incompetence.
No.
Like Roman Baber is constantly accusing the Ontario government of incompetence, and what I'm saying is, Roman, it's supreme competence.
It's the big discussion I've had with friends about this. Very intelligent friends. I've got a physician who's a friend, and we're often having this debate: is this done out of stupidity, or is it a plant? It's a plant.
It's a feature.
It's a plandemic.
Yeah.
Okay? They've talked about this for decades, and maybe even longer. And so this is what we're fighting, and yes, the mainstream politicians have all bought into it. They just want to get along, be along, to go along, to get along, and implement it. And I don't know what they're getting out of it. A lot of misery, really, for everybody, including themselves, their own families, and especially the people they're trying to control. Because at the moment, the people are waking
they are
up.
Controlling.
Right. Well,
they're not trying.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people in Canada, especially, there's more space than in the Netherlands, for example, and you can live your own life somewhere in Barry's Bay, and who cares about the government? But here, I think in general there's the mood here, and I saw an interesting email from one of the Natural News, one of the guys I listen to, in Mike, the health ranger, that says that people are waking up. A lot of people are waking up. Something is not right. Sometimes you can't really put their finger on it. What is it? No, it could be an injury. I actually have a colleague that was in the hospital with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and they had bought into the whole thing. And now, something like that. People took the 2 shots. Now they're being told we need a 3rd shot. Something's not right here. Or maybe next winter another shot, and it's a whole. Yeah, you're right. It's a whole program.
It's a feature.
Yes.
Like a lot of what appears to be incompetence is the nudging of people down the road.
Yes. It started with 2 weeks.
To flatten the curve. Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. We need to extend the lockdown to flatten the curve. Yeah, we need to flatten the 15 days to stop the spread.
Right. This is how it started, and they know. See, if you're right with that incrementalism. It's the frogs boiling in a hot pot, right?
That's exactly what it is. Feature. It's a feature.
It's a feature of the system. So you're right. We talked about this. This is tsunami. And a lot of people don't see it, or don't want to see it, or they want to get along. And go along, but at one point it's going to catch up with people. Somebody's going to say, "Whoa, this is not right." And we're here to give a voice to that.
The problem is that as they get down the road, they become captured.
Yes, and emotionally, physically invested in the whole thing. Yeah.
So I often call it a cult. So you have different features. No, there's different features of cult building.
Well,
no, psychologically, the first thing that happens is. The first thing that happens is there is a confirmation bias. Okay.
Yes.
So a political leader like Doug Ford, who says something like, "You can't disagree with your chief medical officer of health," right? That's okay. So you're not a leader anymore, right? So then he gets surrounded by people that are constantly confirming the same thing. So you have a confirmation
your own echo
bias.
chamber of
That's
your
right.
own opinion.
So then you're hearing this from everybody else. So confirmation bias leads to the group bias.
Mm-hmm.
So now the large portion of society, the group, is in the bias. That leads to a cascade effect. So then almost everything in our lives have to be about the cult. Where are we now?
Funny you call it the cult. This is also David Icke calls it the cult, right? And then maybe that's what we're dealing with. That's right. And we're fighting good versus evil.
That's right. So there's a cascade effect, right? So what happens with the cascade effect is that when you're in a cult, every part of your life becomes about the cult, right? You have a sacrament, vaccination. That's your sacrament into the cult. And then after the cascade effect, you land in a place where you have not the status quo bias, it's called the sunk cost effect. So now we've put so much into masking and social distancing and lockdowns. We can't stop. But let me just finish. Always when you're in the sunk cost effect, there's leakage. You know it's not working. We've been masking and social distancing and all these weird rules for so long. Yeah. It clearly doesn't stop anything.
No.
Right? There's leakage all over the place. Now you need to take your sacrament. You get to take your sacrament, right? So you go from the sunk cost effect to the status quo bias.
Yeah. And you also have Stockholm syndrome at that point, because you have to love the tormentors that you now embraced, right?
That's where we're at. Yeah. So let's talk about the People's Party.
Sure.
What would they do different with COVID policy? And how can you affect it from the federal?
Yesterday, I think Maxime said that this election is a referendum on the COVID hysteria. And so on however way and any of the other associated measures that come with it. So we would not... we would end that hysteria right off the bat. Fire the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Tam is her name. She's played a weird role. Basically also helping to move the goalposts constantly with when was enough. Almost becoming a political operative. I think it might be part of the plan. I don't know. Is sometimes you wonder how these things work.
I would say these people are more like Muppets.
Yeah.
Or puppets.
Yeah.
Like the Theresa Tam, could she be a Chinese spy? I mean, there's a lot of things like that. I mean, the fact is that scientist from China came out and said, hey, COVID-19 is an unrestricted bioweapon.
Yes.
Like, she's a Chinese scientist from the Wuhan lab.
Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
She's now hiding in the U.S. Yeah.
She's hiding.
Well, first of all, our biggest
her life is in danger.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No kidding. What we're doing now is the biggest job right now is exposing this, shine a light on this whole thing, have the discussion. They don't want to debate about this, okay? They're not trying to exclude successfully, I guess, on the national level, Maxime Bernier from the debates.
Unbelievable, actually.
Yes, it is. CBC has become the Canadian Pravda, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I agree with that. So Pravda being just for those listening, Pravda being the state newspaper of the Russian, the communist CCP in Russia back before the wall came down.
They're so dependent on the money. He's promising another $100 million if the Liberals
It's
win.
so obvious he's buying the press. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. That there's no debate about this now. I will for sure push this debate. We've got 2 debates planned, one in for Markham, one for Stouffville. The debate will be on. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to ask some very nasty questions and bring this position out, shine the light on it. I think 60% of people know at this point something's up, and that's a big group. If we articulate our positions well, they will have they will say, wow, this is a good alternative to what we're being served here, because these guys just want to implement the program.
Yeah, for sure. So we could talk COVID the whole time. We probably could have an hour long.
Well, it's a big issue. It's a huge issue.
It's the most important issue.
This morning, CP24 said housing is a big issue in the Toronto region, right?
Okay, so I want to get into housing in a second. But before we leave COVID, I think... Does the People's Party see Canada as a sovereign nation, unaffected by what outsiders tell us? Do we make our own decisions?
Well, of course. Otherwise, why have a parliament, right? That's where the decisions are made. And we should be able to pull an approach off like Sweden. Sweden decided we're going to do it this way. And, for better or for worse, we're going to stick to it. And I think Sweden is in a better position. Also, the numbers look better than others, although they're constantly being blasted for having done what they did. But if you look at, and I was in Europe this summer, if you look at what goes on there, it's already a dictatorship of the EU, and people are not allowed to do anything different than the overall dictative and the Klaus Schwab mentality. If I debate these issues with people in the Netherlands, it's just unbelievable. They think, "Whoa, do you live on a different planet? This is not right, and you're not thinking the same way about COVID, and you're not thinking the same way about climate change. So you're not with the cult." You know,
but it's funny. The Netherlands and and I could go on another side thing here, but you have the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, and a couple other of the traditionally Protestant nations in Europe that are separate from the traditional Catholic nations in Europe in terms of debt, in terms of financial.
Yes, the strong northern countries.
So the Netherlands is
Yes.
strong.
Yeah.
Germany's strong.
Yes.
Denmark is strong. Austria is financially strong, and then
Sweden.
They're opposed to the Catholic nations.
Italy.
On religious lines, it's actually along. It's how fascinating it is that it's along religious lines.
Except for Poland.
Well, no, but Poland's an Eastern Bloc nation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're not traditional, but Ireland is the outlier because Ireland's a Catholic northern nation. But anyway, long story short, so the European Medicines Agency though has something like 20,000 deaths.
20,000 deaths reported, 2 million side effects. Okay?
Wow.
Now, not all of them are serious, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Some of them are 4 days sick,
Right.
hospitalization, you get better.
Right. Yeah, this is it's unfathomable to me that people are not waking up to this. They stopped the program for when was it, 2009, with 20 narcolepsy cases and 20 deaths. The vaccination program was stopped. The virus.
Which vaccination program?
This was related to swine flu.
Swine flu, yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. That was 76, I believe. The 76 one.
Six.
Another virus.
Yeah, sure.
In 2009, they had narcolepsy problems. But so whatever's going on now, they've decided we're not going to care about whoever dies here. So some people are talking, this is a depopulation program. Now, that's very harsh. If that's what we're dealing with, it would actually line up with what our friend Bill Gates has been talking about. But
We're 17 minutes in here.
Yeah.
And we're deep on COVID. So the People's Party, led by Maxime Bernier, the leader, is pro-medical choice.
Correct. Yeah, we're leaving this decision up to the individual, and in that sense, we're not going to mandate vaccination.
Right, and so that you support the authorizations allowing the vaccination, especially for people that are in the high risk.
High risk, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-vax. In fact, my children have had all their childhood vaccines, but they were safe. This is not a safe vaccine.
But that's not the formal position of the People's Party.
That is not a safe vaccine.
No, that you would support the use of the vaccine amongst vulnerable populations and those who choose to use it. Is that not the position?
It's the freedom of choice of the individual.
Right. So the People's Party is like, if you want to take a vaccine,
Yeah.
if you think
Ultimately, it's
informed consent.
See, I get really disgusted when I see Justin Trudeau. Basically, yesterday I was out there inciting almost violence against people that are opposed to the vaccination program because supposedly they are a threat to the children of Canada.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That kind of this is almost a sociopathy. He's fomenting the divisions. This is one thing that we do not want to do. We're not fomenting divisions here.
So the People's Party has vaccinated and unvaccinated candidates.
Exactly.
And
right. If you know,
they have gay or straight candidates.
Correct.
And we're not into people's personal lives.
No.
So, whatever your position is on your personal life, your medical decisions, things that don't change your relationship to the government pursuant to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right?
Correct.
The People's Party
the
supports
government,
that.
as Justin's dad said, the government has no business in the bedroom of the citizen.
Exactly. And so, or in between the doctor and the patient.
Right. And I don't know what changed.
And it's nobody's business.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so the People's Party, just because we've spent a bit of time here, folks, talking about our positions on vaccination. The People's Party, as I understand it, and from what Maxime said, I've met him twice myself, maybe 2 or 3 times. Anyway, he he's not against people having the COVID-19 vaccine. He supports people that are in vulnerable groups getting it for sure, and those that choose to get it. But the point is that people should not be coerced.
Correct. Because it's getting very scary in that situation, and that's why people are fighting back.
Let's change gears.
Yes,
let's change gears because we could be on COVID the whole time, right? And I was knocking on doors for you, and I don't want to go to climate yet. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the People's Party's position on immigration.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about immigration. Before we do, I want to make a point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the immigration debate oftentimes gets lost in confusion. Okay? So new Canadians break into three categories. There's immigrants, there's illegal immigrants, and there's refugees. Are those three different conversations, or is it one big conversation?
No, they're different conversations.
Right, but does it ever seem like they are three different conversations?
No, it's not honestly addressed.
Exactly.
If you have a society, you have rules. You apply those rules consistently, right? And that applies to legal immigration. And actually, Canada is a model in the world with respect to the rules.
They have a fantastic legal immigration policy.
Exactly, and that should be applied. And there's lots of room still in Canada for immigrants, but that has to be done in a somewhat controlled way. Not flooding the country with what Justin wants, just a lot more people here, without maybe even checks and balances that are in there to bring the brightest and the good people into our country. From any country.
And I want to clarify that it's not that the immigration policy can tell who's good or who isn't good. That's not necessarily true. But if we set up these rules and these systems, and it's a good system, why are we not enforcing that system?
Well, I don't know, to tell the truth, I don't know the statistics about illegal immigrants in Canada. I don't know if you have that number, but yeah, in the U.S. it's a huge problem, and I'm assuming some of that is coming across our border. So yeah, that is a huge issue. For the U.S. it's a massive issue, a lot related to crime and all sorts of other things, and it undermines the fabric and the moral compass of a society if you just allow, it doesn't really matter whether there's rules or not, and you're not even implementing and maintaining them. So that is a huge issue. You're right that they're not, and we've seen the people with the suitcases walk across the border. So we don't really know. That's really what it comes down to.
Would you guys adjust the current legal immigration policy?
The legal system is fine. It just has to be maintained properly and say no to people that try to come here illegally and be firm about that.
Yes, and send them back.
Yes,
quickly.
Yes,
because that's what's merciful to them, actually.
Yeah, I think, and also clear. Okay, you saw the disaster that Biden created on the U.S. border by being unclear. Now we had to backpedal, and it's like massive disaster. Okay, you have to, in enforcement, law enforcement, you have to just have clear rules. Makes it easy.
So we have a refugee policy in Canada. If you're being persecuted in your country,
right,
for anything that's a right in Canada, you're allowed to come to Canada and seek refuge.
Yes, I think that's a good rule.
That's a wonderful rule. And the Netherlands has it. The EU has it. The US has it. Refugee policies are. If you don't like living, I'm going to pick a country here. Just because you don't like living in Honduras or Nicaragua, doesn't mean that you have a right to come to Canada.
No. You cannot. Well, economic refugee. Well, play by the system, and there's limitations.
Exactly.
So we need 200,000 or 300 a year. That's it. And I think the position of People's Party is, okay, we've been flooded, and things are a bit out of control. We need to tighten up the system, make sure that it's functioning properly. We don't have to change it a lot in that sense. The underlying classification system is fine, but let's make sure we implement it right and have proper enforcement. And yeah, sure, we can allow a certain amount of refugees, but not hundreds of thousands, or let it come in, just see what happens. No, that see what happens is not a good situation. In fact, in Europe, it's a lot worse. What I've witnessed there, these things have to be managed closely and watched closely. It's nothing to do with racism or with not being compassionate. We all want to be compassionate when we can. I explained this situation to my daughter, who's 18, and said, okay, because she was also questioning me about, well, shouldn't we take care of everybody? Okay, I said, compare it to your house. Yeah, should we let like 20 people in just because they are living on the street and want to be compassionate? Is that going to work? How is it going? Maybe if you're really good and Mother Teresa type material, you could make that work. But most people, it doesn't work. You have to find something that actually works.
Everybody forgets that Mother Teresa was a sister, so she had a vocation. She was a nun.
Yes.
She had she had dedicated herself to the religious life.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And so that's a different situation.
It is. Yeah.
A country like Canada, there's only so many immigrants we can absorb
Yes.
at a certain time successfully. And how many times do you find an engineer from wherever driving an Uber car? Because the immigration system is not working for him. That's the reason why.
That's right. The first 5 to 10 years are often difficult for many immigrants. Yes, and you got to give them the space.
That's why the sponsorship system works so well.
Yes, yes. And of a lot of people have done well here.
Of course.
In that situation, I'm also an example of that.
Of course, you're an immigrant to Canada.
Yeah, after 10 years, I also found my way in exactly what I wanted to do, and happy camper, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. But it's the freedom and the opportunity together that makes it happen. Combine it with
immigration. The problem with the immigration debate is everybody mixes refugees with illegal immigrants and immigrants together into one thing, and nobody knows what the other people are talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And
we need to have a refugee policy, a legal immigration policy, which is merciful to those people, but then moves them forward, either accepts them or sends them out of Canada as soon as possible. Or an illegal immigration policy, which, just so you know, our legal immigration policy is not based on compassion. It is based on what we need in our economy.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
So that's how the system works. And people have modeled it. Australia copied our system.
Yes.
Because what we want, we want electrical engineers. We want computer scientists or whatever in Canada. So then we allow people who have degrees in computer science from India or wherever in the world to come to Canada.
And you know what? Countries like the Netherlands are envious of the Canadian system because the system here has worked well.
Well, absolutely. And, Canada is in the business of taking the world's best and bringing them to Canada.
Yes, and build up even more prosperity that way
sure.
for everybody.
So the People's Party is not against immigration. They're
not at all. No, of course not.
So what's the policy?
At this point, there is a plan. Our policy is to bring the numbers down somewhat, just to get control of it, and also the enforcement of it. Make sure that that the system happens properly, that it's predictable, that you do not have things out of control.
Doctors driving Ubers.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's not fair to them and not fair to us.
I think it's actually compassionate to create a good life for somebody, to be able to provide that opportunity that the doctor can be a doctor here.
Yes,
right,
and have it clearly laid out for a person. So the mixing of a refugee, illegal and legal immigrant policy together in one argument is the problem. Am I correct on that?
I agree with you. Yeah.
So the problem is the Liberals muddy the waters.
Yes.
They muddy the waters.
Yes.
So that you're not merciful. We're not. Our immigration policy has never been about mercy.
I find that whole debate. I find it so disgusting because they're projecting their own shortcomings in that ultimately.
Sure.
By calling somebody else a racist or calling somebody else not compassionate.
So the name calling has gone. The labeling and the name calling has gone out of control.
Yeah.
The People's Party has many candidates that are not that are people of color or whatever word they want to use.
Yeah, that's right.
They have many candidates that are of different sexual orientations, many different religions in the People's Party. But we're the alt-right white supremacist party. How does that work?
Well, this is what they do. Well, we're a threat to the narrative, so they need to put a label on it that they think is going to make us look bad. Well, first of all,
that's because they can't debate the facts.
That's right. They cannot handle the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's dovetail the immigration thing into the housing policy here.
Sure.
So housing has come up as an issue in the election.
Huge.
Okay. And the housing policy is directly related to the immigration policy. There's too many people coming to Toronto and Vancouver. Way too many people.
Yeah.
And so you have a shortage of housing. So if 10 immigrants come to Canada, 9 of them go to either Toronto or Vancouver, right? What does that happen? Drives up the cost of real estate, drives up the cost of rent, creates homelessness, creates poverty. Can the federal government even do anything about housing? Do they even have the authority to do it?
This goes, I guess, related to can Canada control the banksters?
Banksters.
I think Justin tried to, with his infrastructure bank, tried to create something Canadian. I think in Canada we have a Canadian bank that is owned by the people, and we need to assert our independence that way. And that means also the fiscal policies need to be under our control. We cannot be sitting here thinking, oh well, we have no control over that, and some bankster in New York is deciding our future.
No, but really, you have the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
There's two other ones that are like it that create mortgages. So what a lot of people don't understand is that if you get a mortgage for $500,000, $450,000 is created by the Bank of Canada. Like, they don't understand that. Like, it's new money is created to create
all the
that
time.
mortgage.
Yes,
right?
It's not like somebody has
Scotiabank,
yes.
RBC, CIBC doesn't give you the $500,000. The Bank of Canada creates that money so that you can then, and Scotiabank or whoever puts up a small, very small percentage of the money. So they create the money. But the federal government can't really do much about housing. Isn't it more of a provincial issue?
Well, in general, what the People's Party wants to do is get the especially overbearing government out of your life, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And where it's a jurisdiction issue, okay, properly delegate that to the various jurisdiction. As far as this is concerned, it might very well be, especially if you want to talk about creating affordable housing and projects like that. I've watched that debate for 30 years. It's not growing.
It's a provincial debate, though.
Yeah, and the federal government shouldn't even be involved, to even solve anything of that.
Affordable housing is all Ontario, or all Quebec, or all Manitoba. It has nothing to do with the federal government.
Interest rates, though, is something where the federal government could have some influence. Maxime Bernier comes out and has set 0% target for inflation, right, over the next while. We need to get our finances under control. It's a big mess right now. We printed so much money to deal with this COVID tsunami that...
Most people don't realize that there's been more Canadian dollars printed in the last year and a half than the history of Canada.
Yes. It's
like that's a crazy
scary
number.
Situation. We need some very good and boring accountants to fix the situation and bring it back to a manageable portion.
The housing crisis is an immigration crisis. That's what it is. That's in my opinion. If you reduce the level of immigrants coming into the country, into the areas of the GTA and into the area of Vancouver, you will stop the massive uptick of rental rates.
Yeah,
and
well, that's a
costs.
finicky business, right? One reason why the GTA has done so well in the last 30 years, it's almost like a microeconomy, is because you got the 150,000 people coming in here every year, and that creates its own drive for growth. And keep it somewhat stable at that level, fine.
Yes.
You have a nice...
At a natural level.
At a natural level, keep it...
Yes.
And that creates growth and can create prosperity. But once you start adding another 100,000 to that, things get out of kilter. So manage growth and control growth there. Now, as far as that, we need to acknowledge this is a crisis, and we need to get back to our financial house in order. The next 4 years are going to be no matter what, it's going to be tough. Okay, but we need to get the financials under control. Our party is all about fiscal conservatism and making sure that the money situation taken care of.
Let's talk about trade deals. Okay, so USMCA, often called NAFTA 2.0, because everybody knows the word NAFTA, or the U.S.-Canada Free Trade Agreement, adding Mexico to that, and all this sort of thing. I remember watching this, and the Chrystia Freeland made women's rights the big issue.
Okay.
And my head hit the table. And I thought, well, how does Canada enter a free trade agreement talks or enter trade negotiations on a premise of telling other people that their women in their society are not being treated properly, while at the same time we have our own problems here in Canada? Why was the USMCA so poorly negotiated on the dairy front, on the steel and aluminum front, and what would the PPC do better there?
Well, I must admit I'm not a trade deal expert, but what you are talking about with respect to it has nothing to do with economy to try to advance certain groups against economic conditions that prevail. Capitalism is harsh. Okay, you know it. I know it. It's a survival of the fittest system that makes people do certain things in a certain way.
But we don't live in a capitalist society.
Well,
We live in a social democracy. There's certainly not capitalism. We have healthcare paid for by the provinces. We have all manner of rent controls. We have welfare for people. We have unemployment insurance. We have parental leave for a year after.
And we
this
have
idea that we live in some
taxes,
vicious.
right.
We live in some vicious capitalist society. Is just
that's true.
Frankly, not true.
Although Europeans coming here, especially Eastern Europeans coming here, I have a friend that says, "Well, North America is a glorified work camp."
Work camp. Well,
this now, okay. I don't see it that way. But let's get back to the
creating prosperity. How's that?
Yeah. And there's no rival for that. The U.S. and Canada are the motors of the world. So we need to preserve freedom mostly, and keep our books in order. Otherwise, it could go bad really quickly. And I think that's one thing that drove me to actually run. It seems like people have no concept of that. It's sort of the budget balances itself. Yeah, we've seen that.
We don't want to talk about that too much. But would the People's Party and Maxime Bernier, are you going to take a Canada first position
for sure
on trade?
That's why we're here for, right? We're Canada. We're being elected to a parliament in Canada, and we should. Yes, we can be compassionate too, where it makes sense, and we should cooperate with everybody else where it makes sense. Cooperation, trade, it's all great, but there should be some. We are the Canadian Parliament, and we for that reason set policies that work for Canadians. Simple as that. It seems sort of counterintuitive for me. If you want to generate wealth and prosperity, as we have been, and then give it away, great, right? Then you help maybe people in Syria or in Indonesia or wherever problems occur. But you first have to generate that wealth. You can't create a communist system here and then hope for the best. It actually will. This is one thing that I worry about, that with this whole great reset focused on now medical tyranny and climate, we create a system that rivals a Soviet type situation where people become people become demotivated to work. Basic income discussions. Okay, well, why would I even take a job? This is the backsliding, the beginning of the end of a prosperous economy, and that some people have that in mind. That Klaus Schwab wants us to eat bugs, for example.
Yeah.
Or that okay, it's fine. It's great if you survive on $3,000 a month, and that's it for life. Forget just be happy, own nothing, and you'll be happy. No, you know what? That's not the premise of North America. That's not how we got here, and how we became a magnet for immigrants. So there's something to preserve there. Yes, Canada first. Why? Yeah.
Let's talk about taxation. What's the people's policy on taxation?
The first, Maxime has talked about this, that the first 4 years we have to cut spending significantly. This is how we're going to get our budget under control. And then after 4 years we can start cutting our taxes back, because I think we're all being taxed to the max. I don't know about you, but on my top portion I pay 53% tax. And that's not even sales tax. It's
property taxes.
Property tax. I don't know what the number is now. We keep 30 or 40% of every dollar we make. Is that it? That's
for me. It's about 55 cents goes to taxes.
Yeah. And the middle class is under major pressure there. And especially with the housing market.
I don't even know what the middle class means. When someone talks about the middle class, that's something I remember from my youth.
Yeah. A family being able to sustain itself on one income, maybe,
yes.
Right? And being happy.
Being
with
able
that.
to choose that.
Having a lifestyle that you want as your family. That's a middle class.
Yeah,
and you can still afford to go on holidays.
Rent a cottage in the summer or whatever you wanted to do, and have 2 cars.
That's what we want. And that middle class is under so much pressure that
I don't know what it means when people say middle class to me. I don't understand what they're talking about anymore. The idea of solid public schools, that was something that was important to the middle class, because you can't pay for private education and be in the middle class. That makes you rich all of a sudden, right? So so you're saying lower taxation.
Lower taxation after 4 years. Okay, after the first term. In the first term, we first have to get the fiscal house in order through the cutting of the spending, and we need the income of that's there. As far as other specific policies on taxation, we'd have to read the platform.
Talk to me about the economy. What are you guys going to do?
Well, we need to stimulate the motor of entrepreneurial Canada and make it easy for people to earn a living that way. And what has happened in the 18 months, the lockdowns and then what have you, it has destroyed that motor, or it has worked on destroying that motor, and it has given tax breaks to the Amazons of the world. Nothing against Amazon succeeding, but it should not succeed at the expense of the small business. And so I think there's a role to be played there for government, creating a level playing field that applies to everybody, not COVID rules for one and not for another, for example. I thought that was so ridiculous. It's either, if you got 400 people in Costco, they should also be able to go somewhere else, right? And things like that. I think government cannot be in the business of picking winners or losers in the same markets. Sure, you can maybe decide we want to invest in certain transitions. And there's an interesting discussion about oil in Canada, right? Do you believe in that climate change reset? Do you want to phase out fossil fuels? This is what the ism. Whatever the ism
whatever the ism is, fascism, communism,
it wants to do.
Globalism,
well, you know what? Let the market rule. This is People's Canada, People's Party position. We need the pipelines right now. We need the Alberta oil. As far as and I say that as an environmentalist, so you have to keep that in mind. I agree with Patrick Moore. I don't know if you've seen what his presentation in front of the Senate was a couple of years ago. He's a founder of Greenpeace, basically saying we can't be sure that what they're saying about climate change is in fact true, that the CO2 is causing this change. So if somebody like that says something like that, we cannot jump on the bandwagon and create a massive energy transition program, top down, communist kind of. Yes, that's where we're going. I think that this is not the right direction.
When I look at it, so without oil and gas, you can't live in Canada.
Well, that's the other side. Yeah, I often joke about that to my friends.
People like the people that talk a tough game on environmentalism are like Lady Macbeth walking around trying to get the blood off their hands. On the beach in Florida? No, but trying to get the blood off their hands. Like, you cannot live in Canada in 2021 in the winter without oil and gas.
No.
It's not a place to live anymore.
No.
Right? So we have to leave Canada, if you want to stop using oil and gas.
Yes.
And so this idea that we should shut down our own oil and gas production to buy oil and gas from unsavory nations like Venezuela, for example, or Saudi Arabia or whatever. Sure. The bottom line is this. Everybody believes in clean water.
Yes.
Everybody believes that less pollution is good.
Yes.
Right?
And that oil companies shouldn't be polluting our world. In fact, I worked in that whole business. I worked for the Shells and Essos of the world, making sure that whatever they build meets proper standards also from an environmental perspective. Should all be done. Okay?
And the standards are significantly higher in Canada than they are in Venezuela or Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
But if you start saying things like, well, we should shut down our, this is how I know that Doug Ford is stupid. Okay, you want to know how I know that? Because Ontario is what, 90% clean electricity now? 80% clean electricity?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? It's 80% nuclear and water and hydro?
And water, yeah.
Hydro and nuclear, right? And so we already have clean electricity. If he was a smart guy, he would be screaming that from the rooftops. He would be telling New York State and Michigan, Pennsylvania to buy the clean energy that we produce.
They're buying the nuclear energy at a loss for
no,
Ontario,
we have to pay them to take it.
Yeah.
We have to pay them to take it.
I know.
They have to, like, we're talking about environmentalism, okay? And Ontario is so poorly run that they're paying, Ontario is paying Michigan to take our clean electricity.
Yes. Yeah, these are,
and our jobs, and our auto factories, and everything else.
Yes.
Like, why is this idiot who's, like, listen, 300 pounds overweight or whatever he is, telling everybody to stay healthy? Okay, I hate to say that. I hate to break it down to that. But there's an irony there, okay? And he's telling, he doesn't have his government doesn't have and Trudeau doesn't have the wherewithal to say, you know what? We have 2 clean electricity provinces in Canada, Quebec and Ontario. They're 80 to 90% clean energy, electricity. Elon, build your electric car factory here.
Yes.
Where the electricity is clean.
See, you're right. And people need...
Where's Trudeau? What do you... But no, all you do is you beat up our oil and gas companies in Alberta and force them to close the pipelines and don't make...
It's a whole agenda,
but you can't say anything about how wonderful Ontario and Quebec are doing with their electricity.
Lack of vision and implementation of a ideology-based narrative, and that's some sort of communism of something.
I don't know what it is, but there's 2 jurisdictions in the world, not non-government, non-national. So, for example, Germany, clean Germany with all their solar panels, 500 times the carbon intensity. Okay, no, people don't understand that. I didn't say 500. I said 500 times. Okay, so Germany. Each German produces 500 times the carbon from their electricity generation as an Ontarian. Okay? Clean Germany.
I didn't know that number.
500 times. They're burning coal. Right? Ontario has clean electricity. How come no Canadian knows this? How come the world does not know this? How come people aren't coming here to build their factories and use our clean nuclear
cheap
hydroelectricity, clean nuclear and hydroelectricity to make products and show the world how it's done?
Well, because we lack people that have vision. And I believe actually someone like Maxime who understands that motor. You talked about an entrepreneurial motor and how to create the conditions for people to make these decisions like an Elon Musk. Yeah, to bring him here. And that's whatever you want to call it, Canada first. The Americans are not shy to do it,
Yeah, for sure.
And all the power to them. We can do it too. And so that's. But we're not in the business of running business as government. We're in the business to provide opportunity and make it easier.
Well, the government doesn't like this idea. So Toronto has like an office of entrepreneurship, which I think is a joke. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. Okay, legitimately, no money, never borrowed a dime from anybody. Okay, I employ, 30 people in Canada, United States. I've started 6 businesses. Okay.
Yeah, Canadian dream, right?
You're going to come tell me about entrepreneurship?
No, that's nonsense.
You know what I mean?
No.
Some bureaucrat at the city of Toronto is going to start talking to me about entrepreneurship.
Well, this works for people that are new to the country, right? To learn the ropes with certain
I don't think it does work for anybody. I think it's like a job creation. Job.
It's okay to teach people some rules about how the system works, this and that.
Maybe,
right?
but what I'm saying is that the government needs to get out of the way.
Exactly.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Don't get in people's way when they're producing economic growth, when they're solving problems. My belief is that all societal problems, the solutions should be revenue generating.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What I said?
That's a scorecard of society.
Should be revenue generating.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're a tax on society.
Well,
right.
So
you're a drag.
Yeah, that's it. So what are your final thoughts on the People's Party? We're at 48 minutes in here.
Yeah,
what do you got?
Final thoughts. I hope we're going to make a difference. This, I believe we have a very much a counter narrative here, and a strong, based on truth narrative. Very important that we bring this out. Nobody else is talking about it. I hope we see a surprise. this election.
We saw it in Nova Scotia.
I think people are significantly disgusted with the current
That
situation.
was a protest vote.
Yes.
In Nova Scotia, it
Right.
was I'm voting the other way.
Right.
I want some change.
Right, and a lot of people might want to go conservative for that at this point, but conservative is not much different than liberals. In my opinion, O'Toole is Trudeau light, and they dances to the same globalist tune. We definitely don't. We're Canadians, and
Well, he come out. O'Toole came out last week and said that anybody that goes against the policies of the Conservative
Oh,
Party
yeah.
of Canada, that's basically saying anybody who believes in the electoral system of Canada can't be a part of our party.
yeah, it's a bit dictatorship. But I mean, that's what big parties do. I guess he wanted to reassert his dominance. I'm
But
not
the
sure.
People's Party doesn't do that.
No, we definitely we know freedom works. Let freedom reign. Let people do their thing, and they will succeed. We need to create that atmosphere again. Get all the authoritarians out of our lives, and that's, I think, our biggest job. And at the moment, shine a light on that, and we'll do well. I think at the moment we're polling better than Green Party and Bloc.
But I think those polls are underestimating where the PPC is right now.
We need to work hard, get the word out. I think we have a chance to get 60% of the vote if we do it hard. Because 60% is homeless, according to National Post.
Mm-hmm.
Our message is inclusive. We are not, we're not catering to any particular demographic or sex or this or that. We believe in the message of freedom, and that's my final thought.
Yeah, message of freedom. Folks, if you made it to the end here, that's René de Vries. He is the candidate for Markham-Stouffville. He represents the People's Party of Canada. Folks, think about your vote. Most importantly, vote.
Yes.
Most importantly, vote. Go vote. Wherever your heart takes you, whether that's any of the parties, make sure you vote. But think about voting purple. Bring the purple rain. We got to bring that down on Canada. We got to make a change here, folks. So go.
Okay.
What's the website of the People's Party? You got it off the top of your head?
Peoplespartyofcanada.ca.
Peoplespartyofcanada.ca. I'm not going to try to spell it. You can spell it. Peoplespartyofcanada.ca. Folks, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for the...
Any final thoughts? Look here at the camera.
People, make sure that you shine your light on the truth. That's all we need, and don't lose hope in that we cannot create the future we want. We can do that if we do it together and if we stay focused. So.
And if we keep that future free, folks, and you want to start a podcast,
You can do that too.
You can go to getagripstudios.com, right here at Victoria Park and Steeles in Toronto, just steps from Markham-Stouffville, where René's running for the federal election. Folks, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.